It's your boy Seth. So I haven't brought you one in a long time, but I've been kind of waiting for the news to spiral better or worse or more understanding. This is some more urban daily news. This is focused on the stimulus checks and the government and getting the next bill passed and all this money that we hopefully supposed to be getting. This check, well, I ain't gonna say this check, but this is an update basically on all the information. If you haven't followed too much, it has been passed by the House, meaning that the Democrats has already said the A-OK on the bill. And now it's in the Senate, and they said they're gonna take their time and try to sort through it and figure some things out. I'm gonna let Meet Kevin tell you everything else about it. Please subscribe, comment, and to my channel, and like my video, please. And also subscribe to Kevin's channel. If you don't want to hear from me, you don't have to, but I'm always let everybody in my community know what's going on. But also subscribe to Meet Kevin's channel. He keeps you updated on everything also, and we're gonna get it from there. Okay. All right.
Hey everyone, Kevin here. It's May 20th and I have some updates for you regarding the next round of stimulus. Things that are going on at the Federal Reserve, going on in the Senate, going on in Canada, and how that relates to us. And of course, what we think is most likely to pass in the next stimulus bill. But before we get into that, two quick notes. One, thank you so much to all of you because we are about to hit 600,000 subscribers. So if you have not yet subscribed, join the pre-600,000 subscriber club. In the meantime, the second thing that I want to touch on is if you have not yet seen this, I think it's worth us having a dialogue about this because it relates to the reopening of our economy, which we all know the reopening of our economy is going to need additional stimulus to make sure it goes as smooth as possible. But in order to have as smooth as possible of a reopening anyway, there are going to be some boundaries pushed and there are going to be some things we have to conform to. One of those is this. If you have not yet seen this video, I'm going to go ahead and quickly play this. It's only 36 seconds long, and I want to see your opinion. This is a Costco employee who is being filmed by a customer in Costco, and it mostly speaks for itself, so let's go ahead and play it here, and I want your opinion.
I'll just put you on my 3,000 follower Instagram feed, mostly locals.
Hi everyone, I work for Costco and I'm asking this member to put on a mask because that is our company policy. So either wear the mask
and I'm not doing it because I woke up in a free country.
Have a great day.
So you're going to take this cart from me?
Sir, have a great
full
day.
Of stuff.
You are no longer welcome here in our warehouse. You need to leave. Thank you very much.
You put it on, I'll give you my card. He's going to take the card away because he's a pussy little. There he is, walking away with all my stuff. There he goes. Because I'm not a fucking sheep.
Okay, so let's just quickly touch on this and share some opinions here. Here's the thing. Costco, much like any other business, is a private business. That's a fact, right? It is a private, I mean, it's public. That is, you can invest in it. If you're like a stock member or stock investor, you're like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure they're public. Yes, but the actual Costco facility, the warehouse, is private, right? And any kind of private institution, and I'm not an attorney, right? But any kind of private institution does have the right to ask you to follow norms when you go within a certain premise. You know, it's one thing if we're walking around in public spaces and we're required to wear masks. I could see that being, a healthy debate to have. In private areas, I do think it makes sense that businesses can have the right to exercise, well, their rights to property, which say that if you have a certain rule and somebody doesn't follow it, you can ask somebody to leave. Now, does this mean I agree with Costco requiring people to wear masks? That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is it is within a company's right, at least from what I'm aware of, any kind of private business enterprise that has its own property and you enter it, you have to follow the rules. And then if you're asked to leave and you remain on the property, you could, and this is where it could get crazy, if you get asked to leave and you don't leave or you come back in, they could call the cops and you could end up getting arrested and dragged out of there. I see this happening, or I expect this to happen more and more and more as we go through reopening. And I want to ask your opinion. It seems like the employee handled this as a model employee could. The employee I thought did a great job for enforcing Costco's policies, but I don't think the debate is so much the way the employee handled it, which I don't think anybody can find fault in the way he handled it. I think the debate is, should private businesses require you to wear masks? And if they do require you to wear masks, is it fair for them to enforce their own rules? within their own businesses. If you're going to patronize a business, should you have to follow the rules of that business? So I'm going to leave that to all of you in the comments down below. I'm interested to hear what you think. I suppose if I thought of Costco as, for example, my house, and if at my house I had a sign on the door that said you can't come in unless you use hand sanitizer, well, I might not be inclined to let you come in unless you use hand sanitizer. But should that extend to businesses that have their doors technically open to the public? Yes, I know you need a membership to go into Costco, which adds a whole nother host of issues. But imagine this was like Kroger's or Albertsons, where you can just walk in the door. Interested to hear what y'all think. I think businesses have the right to exercise these rules, but this is going to be a big thing with our reopening. Now let's get into what's actually going on with our reopening. You know, surprisingly, a lot of folks are going to be keeping an eye on Texas and Georgia, states that are early in the reopening. And what I encourage all of you to do, you can kind of do this on a daily basis. I think it's a great thing to do, is you could just Google coronavirus cases and then whatever state or country like Georgia or Texas and take a look at what you get. You actually get this neat tool here where you could see exactly the trajectory of case counts and how they sort of relate to the past. So that was Georgia. Here's Texas, for example. So you sadly have a little bit of an uptrend in Texas. It's certainly not substantial. You have New York City here. Let's take a look at New York. New York is the one you could essentially argue is kind of dragging the whole country down, right? And then you actually have California, I'm pretty sure, moving up a little bit. California with a slight uptrend as well. So sort of fascinating, but cool tool that you could use. And of course, you could go here and change to new cases, to deaths, to the state, to, you know, whatever country you want. So good little tool for y'all to pay attention to. Now, in other news, the Senate. Well. The Senate is actually, we know that right now they're not focused on the stimulus package, the HEROES Act, which the House passed last Friday. We know this because yesterday I broke down a video in terms of the Senate's expected time frames, in terms of when we think they're actually going to end the sort of pause, that is their waiting period to actually have their debate on this HEROES Act. And we know we expect them to actually talk about the HEROES Act at the end of the month. You can watch that video for more detail where I break down that interview with a Republican senator from the Senate Banking Committee. And so that's why instead today the Senate actually passed a bill called the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act. It was just passed by the Senate. It was actually a bipartisan bill in the Senate, and it passed without objection. It was passed by, it was actually authored by a Republican and a Democrat, and this essentially requires Chinese companies like Alibaba, who are listed on our United States stock exchanges, to follow SEC regulations, which open you up for accounting rules. So this kind of shows you that right now, the Senate is totally still in wait and see mode on our next round of stimulus, which is frustrating a lot of us. In a CNBC interview, we do find out that the sort of accounting requirements they're looking for, or that this bill would impose on Chinese companies, are actually relatively minor. Apparently they're kind of like a joke. They're sort of laughed at in the industry. They're easy to deal with. And China has also expressed not being interested in even those. The China trade war and issues like this could end up being substantial parts of our reopening debate and what ends up happening with the future of stimulus. Because here's the thing. When you've got substantial green days like we do today, where the market is almost up in every single sector, it's very hard for senators, I hate to say it, but it's very hard for senators who do watch what the markets do to go to work and say, you know what? Let's issue more relief. Let's issue more stimulus. In fact, when we open up our stock trading platform, Webull, which if you join and deposit just $100, you could get 2 free stocks worth up to $1,400. Most of the stocks and indices today are substantially in the green. Well, when it comes down to what we actually expect the Senate to pass, we know that based on prior interviews, the Senate seems interested in extending prior programs, which would mean things like another round of stimulus checks. They've never expressed objection to that. I've mentioned this a few times over the last couple weeks here, that nobody so far, Mitch and other Republicans, nobody's mentioning that they're not interested in additional stimulus checks, which is good. And instead, they're giving us positive signals, which say we're willing in the future to extend the programs that worked and have worked, and maybe ones that need some modification, which is a big implication that we might see more unemployment insurance payments, a longer sort of period. Although we do know that Republicans are more interested in seeing people get back to work, so this creates a little bit of a duality. Maybe there'll be an asterisk on unemployment that requires you to go back to work, which is something that Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has already alluded to. I imagine we'll see an extension of the PPP program, where rather than spending the money that you get within an 8-week period, it'll actually be extended to something like 24 weeks. We've talked about that. And then, of course, we have to see that there is still the human debate that you have between people like Pelosi and Donald Trump. And we know that the HEROES Act is essentially Pelosi's bill. At least that's the way it's been branded by the media. So whether it is or isn't, that's the way it appears. And it doesn't help that when headlines run that suggest Nancy Pelosi called Donald Trump morbidly obese, which she did because she was talking about Donald Trump taking the drug hydroxychloroquine, which the FDA has cautioned against taking. And she said that it's especially risky, according to the Politico here. Politico said that she said it's especially risky for people who are, quote, morbidly obese, which then Donald Trump, of course, responded with and called her a, quote, sick woman, end quote, and then a separate quote, a lot of mental problems, end quote. That does not help with the passage of the HEROES Act. Well, what does help with the passage of the HEROES Act, though, and with more stimulus, is, of course, that we continue to have Federal Reserve presidents of the different member banks throughout the country come out and suggest things like this quote here from Federal Reserve President of Atlanta, Mr. Bostic, who says, quote, as of right now, my focus is on making sure this recovery is as robust as possible and that relief is getting in the hands of the folks who need it, which echoes what we see Jerome Powell saying and other Fed presidents who all seem to be for additional relief, especially to the individuals who need it most. Atlanta, by the way, has a poverty rate over 22.4%, which is higher than the threshold I usually recommend in my real estate investing course. And if you want to learn more about how to make money, I've got a course for the psychology of money and, of course, real estate investing. Use that coupon code down below, and after you check out for one of them, you get a bundle coupon for one of the other ones if you want to bundle up. So now I want to ask you, will you wear a mask in public? And if not, why not?
On the urban experience, where we do things the urban way. I'm out.